Tonight we're lost in a strange world, and we don't know the language, we don't know the customs, we can't find our way home. Help us! We are in hostile horizons. Join us on the Film Swap Podcast.
Here is a motion picture film.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrill.
Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Film Swap. My name is David Seeley, and I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed co-host. He's a man who's invested every cent he has into yellow trousers, and you'll find out a little bit about that later. He's the ecstatic gaucho himself, Mr. Jonathan Pritchard Barrett. Jonathan, how are you today?
Very well, very well. I'm wearing two or three pairs of yellow trousers tonight.
Well, they suit you. They suit you. The more, the merrier, I think. And we have a guest with us tonight. He's a singer, an actor, and he's also my cat's best friend. He is the man himself, George Coutsoudis. George, welcome back. How are you doing?
Hello, David. Hello, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
It's all right.
Good to be on your amazing podcast.
Brilliant. And has everything been going well? Have you been enjoying the nice weather?
Yes, very much so. Thankfully, most of my work is indoors, so I've been aircon most of the time. How about you guys?
Oh, there's no aircon around here. I don't know about you, Jono. Any aircon?
I don't have aircon at home.
A lot of open windows, although I've had to close it because otherwise we'd have too much racket from outside interfering with the recording. But that's okay. And this week, while most people have been watching young, sweaty men kick a ball around in a field, we have been watching weird old Soviet science fiction films, very obscure animated cult classics from the 80s. So, and we're going to talk about it tonight because we are kind of strangers in a strange land, and we are embarking out, heading off into hostile horizons and working out how to get by and how to survive. And we're talking about two really, really interesting films tonight. This came about because Jonathan and I, when we were discussing what we wanted to do for the episode this time, we kind of decided to talk about some Reel Rarities, and that was kind of the remit. We kind of said, let's pick a couple of really obscure films that not a lot of people in the West anyway are familiar with, and talk about them. And then, of course, I thought, well, we got to get a guest on, someone who definitely hasn't seen these films, so we can get some fresh perspectives from someone who's never seen them before. So I reached out to my good friend George, and here he is tonight with us. So, George, had you seen either of these films before?
No, I hadn't, and I don't think any of them would have come to my attention. So thank you very much. As much of a classic as Kin-Dza-Dza is, I mean, it's brilliant, but it wouldn't have come to my attention. So thanks for pointing me that way. Brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, well, no, that's no problem. It was the first time for me as well, actually. And I'd seen Plague Dogs before, which is the film that we're going to be talking about in the second half of the show. But I don't know, George, had you heard of that one either?
No, as well. I hadn't heard of Plague Dogs. What a great film as well, yeah.
Okay, great. And how about you, Jonathan? I know when we talked, because you were the one who suggested Kin-Dza-Dza, but yes. How about Plague Dogs?
Plague Dogs I had heard of, because I'd heard I sort of know about Watership Down and Richard Adams, the guy who wrote it, and I sort of knew that he'd written another story that had been turned into a film, which was Plague Dogs. I think maybe another one as well, Shardik, which was one of his other novels in the 70s. So I had heard of it, but I'd never seen it. And Kin-Dza-Dza I heard of. The reason I suggested it is because I was somehow on Instagram and this little clip came up. I'm not sure why. Instagram thought I should know about it. And I thought, wow, that looks crazy. So I did a bit more research and I thought, yes, that would be a good choice for our podcast. So that's where I got it from.
Well, it's quite something. Let's put it that way. So I'm really interested to dig in and talk a bit about it tonight.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's quite a popular kind of cult film in Russia, where
Oh,
it's obviously a little bit more well known. But here in the West, it's relatively obscure. Just a few years ago, it was released by Deaf Crocodile. They did a restoration and released it on Blu-ray. And I had picked that up out of interest, but it, of course, was one of those that you buy things sometimes and then they sit on your shelf still in the shrink wrap for a while. And so it was great that when Jonathan brought it up, I went, actually, I've got a copy of that. That's fantastic.
Wow,
So
that's impressive.
yeah,
I was
so
impressed. I was very impressed.
such is the wonders of my library here that there's all sorts of wonderment, magical
Have you ever
wonderment.
shown your podcast as a little glimpse of your library there, David? Have you ever
Well,
turned the camera just so it's giving people an idea?
well, I used to actually, because my desk used to be situated on the other side of the room, and so I
Oh yeah.
used to have a more of a backdrop of shelving and stuff all just stacked up with hundreds of Blu-rays and things behind me. But since then, we've moved the desk over to the front of the room, so the piano's behind me. But just to give you an idea, the hoarding that I do is that you can see already a big pile of stuff has piled up behind me on top of the piano. So such is the life of the obsessive film nerd and collector. But anyway, maybe another time on another episode I can share some of my booty with people. But anyway, I think tonight let's press the little button and find ourselves on the planet. What? How did they pronounce it? Planet Plunk? Plunk?
Look,
Pluk.
look. I think so.
Well, I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan because this is a film that he selected for the show tonight. So I'm going to hand it over him to give a proper introduction to this extraordinarily mad film
Yeah.
from Soviet era Russia called Kin-Dza-Dza. So, Jonathan, take it away.
Well, Kin-Dza-Dza is really one of the strangest films I think I've ever seen. It's quite it's quite unlike anything else. I mean, we've discussed quite a few odd films and unusual films, but this one takes the biscuit, if biscuit is the right word. I don't know, maybe or something. Is the
It
right,
takes the coup.
takes yeah. Because basically, it's a Soviet film from 1986. So, and the rough story is that there's this uh, a guy in his sort of Moscow flat, and he goes out to run a quick errand to get some macaroni for supper because he's got home and his wife found out they'd run out. And when he's out, he bumps into some young guy, and together they meet this sort of man who has they think he's psychotic. He says he's from a different planet, and he's got this sort of weird device thing. And rather impatiently, because he's got to go and get his macaroni, he sort of presses a button. Next thing, they're in this weird land, and they said it's very weird because it seems like the Karakum Desert. And funnily enough, that's where they filmed it, which was quite a nice little touch there. And it's basically a sort of flat white desert, pretty much. And these people start turning up in sort of spaceships, but they're more like sort of towers, mini towers that sort of fly around, and a door flaps open like this. And people get out. I think they communicate telepathically, so they only have one or two words in their language, and really, it's very difficult to describe. They go on this sort of caper, I guess, meet other people, and some of them have bells hanging from their noses. Some of them have little lights on the sort of corner of their heads that sort of revolve around. And
And these are all sort of social hierarchies. This is how they designate where people fit in the social stratum,
yes, that
isn't
is,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they go sort of underground to this sort of large mine underground where they meet more people. And yeah, it's very out there. Uh, and the music is by Gia Cancelli, who's a great Georgian sort of modern classical contemporary composer. It's been called the best sci-fi film you've never heard of, and it is really quite out there. Little White Lies magazine said it's Mad Max meets Monty Python by way of Tarkovsky, um, which which is true. And
Which
apparently,
which is a
it's a
it's
good.
a good description, isn't it? Really, because it is like it has this extraordinary visual style to it,
Yeah,
but this really absurd kind of surreal sort of humor and
mm,
vibe. And then, but it's also got this really layer of complex sort of social commentary on it. Really fascinating and just really pulls you in
yeah,
because you're kind of lost with these two characters because they're kind of on a quest, aren't they, to get home. And they
yeah,
discover these guys. They meet these two characters, these two gents,
yeah,
who sort of aren't particularly nice or very friendly, but they ascertain after a lot of sort of trying to decipher the culture and the language and things that these guys kind of offer, or they kind of strike a bargain to for them to take them home, but they then have to go and buy a little device that they need to put in this vehicle so that they can actually take them back to Earth. So that's the basic story, and they discover that they have these because the man smokes the Uncle what's his name, Uncle Volvo, the
Vova.
he's
Vona, or
he's like a
yeah,
foreman back on Earth. He's like a sort of construction foreman, and he's
yeah,
very serious and very a bit sort of grumpy and sort of straight to business kind of guy,
yeah,
and so um, he discovers that the matches that he has, because he smokes, are actually a very, very valuable commodity on this planet. So he then realizes, well, I can use this as our leverage to get us out of here. Him and his companion, who they just call the violinist, because he has a violin with him, even though he's not a musician. He just had it with him because he was taking it somewhere for somebody, so he just happened to have a violin on him. Um, so thanks, Jonathan, for the description. I mean, it is a crazy film to kind of describe, isn't
yeah,
it? For someone who's kind of going in cold, it's kind of like you
yeah,
know, it's quite fun, but it is quite accessible as well. There's not any. It's not a difficult film. Or actually, I guess George, I'll hand it over to you. Give us your first impressions on it. And did you find the film was accessible? And did you find that the weirdness and everything at the beginning? Did you find that a bit alienating, or what were your thoughts on that?
I found it very accessible in terms of it allowing me to follow, just going with the flows. I noticed especially when he touched that when he was buying the groceries and he touched that machine and suddenly boop, they were there in that new environment. It was weird because it almost took you there as well
Yeah,
completely, and you were completely accepting of where you suddenly were, and the poetic license of just saying, oh, actually, yes, they are in another planet. And I was struck by the lo-fi, almost sci-fi element of it. Very when they said about Mad Max,
yeah,
I guess the desert lends itself towards that as well. But the way that the flying machines were constructed, and it's all kind of bit primitive in a way. I quite liked that. I thought the music was was brilliant. That jump, boom, boom, jump, that very kind of that Russian music as well, and the story unfolds itself in a very accessible way, where as much as at the pace at what the characters are discovering what's happening, you discovering what's happening as well. Like, for example, the fact that matches are a commodity, or that there's a shortage of water, or just accepting the way that they fly around in these weird kind of contraptions, and their weird languages, and it's so I did find it accessible. Yes.
Yeah, that you're quite right that the film does have that, I guess, what they'd call cyberpunk aesthetic now, doesn't it? Where
Mm,
it's like
mm,
sort of like this dystopian world that's obviously
yeah.
had either some sort of environmental breakdown, or they've sort of just consumed all their resources, and now everyone is just sort of trying to scavenge and piece together little bits,
Mm.
but so
Yes.
their society is all built around this, sort of structure of just sort of scrounging and bartering, and these really sort of constructed hierarchies of, like, I thought it was just brilliant that when the two guys meet them on the planet, they just point this device, and whatever color light comes
Yeah.
on, they kind of go, oh, you're a this, so that means you have to go coo two times to us
Yes,
before.
have this arbitrary class division,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
it's saying you this because you're this and you're this, and that the only thing that distinguishes them, not biology necessarily or anything, is just literally a color on this device.
yeah,
I think
exactly.
it's
And so
also
then they have to
yeah,
wear this little nose thing. And then that
yeah,
bit, like we joked about the yellow pants at the beginning, but that's like, because it's really funny that the guy at one point says, well, if these people do this, and if they make enough money, then they can
yeah,
afford to buy a pair of yellow trousers. They say
yeah,
pants, but then they don't mean like we would say in England, pants as in underpants. They mean
yeah,
pants as in trousers. But they kind of say, oh, you can buy a pair of yellow pants, and if you have a pair of yellow
mm,
pants, then that means that you're kind of higher up in the social strata there, and
mm,
people have to defer to you for certain things. So it's all this kind of really arbitrary and sort of bizarre kind of constructs of sort of the social,
yeah,
and it's just,
yeah,
and it does kind of poke fun at the way that, I guess, in our own society we do that. We kind of just allow people. We just kind of say, oh, these people are kind of higher up because
mm,
of this or because of that, and it just sort of lays it to bear just about how much people
yeah.
just sort of accept that without.
Well, mid 80s. I mean, it's things perestroika, the whole challenge in it.
Yeah.
They're starting to become a bit more acceptable as edging towards the 90s and things easing off. And then I guess this was the filmmaker's way of almost challenging that within a storyline, hiding it behind this crazy storyline, and perhaps protecting themselves, getting captured by the powers that be for rebellious content or whatever.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of ways you can interpret this, which
Yeah.
is part of the fun. And I just love, like you mentioned at the beginning, because the chap, the main chap, the foreman, who they call Uncle, or the young guy calls him Uncle, which I guess is just like
Mm,
a social nicety that you would call your elder. But he just kind of, he's very serious, a little bit
yeah.
grumpy, a little bit ornery. And I love that bit at the beginning because because he's getting kind of a bit impatient with this, a guy who they think is just like a sort of a mentally ill street person who says he's from another planet. And so he thinks he's being clever by just going, oh, let me sort of prove that he's just being silly. So I'll just press the button on his silly little contraption. And then they're suddenly in this
Love this.
desert in the middle of nowhere, and his face is just brilliant because he just kind of does this, oh, oh, so it
Yeah.
was real, oh great, now what? But he's also very uh like a foreman would be. He's just very much like a problem solver, and he just kind of goes, okay, this is annoying. We're in the middle of nowhere now. What are we going to do? How are we going to figure this out? What do we have to do to get out of here? What do we have to do to get home? And so he is a really great character because he has this very sort of single-minded kind of, let's just get down to business and just like get this.
And yet, yeah, and yet what he finds preposterous in the beginning, he eventually starts conforming to as well.
Yeah,
Things like the wearing the thing, the nose, doing the postures. Eventually, that becomes his norm as well, in a way. Even though in the beginning he's quite rebellious towards it, but in the end, that he starts adapting it as well because he has to conform to where he
yeah.
is.
Or conformer, you could read this too as more like a socialist because it's Soviet era
Mm,
film. You
absolutely.
could interpret it more like he has to learn as the film progresses in order to solve his problems. He has to learn to accept other
Exactly.
people
Yes.
and cooperate with them and be, in
Oh.
order to ultimately uh, get himself home and solve his dilemma and solve his problem.
Mm,
And through the course of the film, because at first all everything's very transactional and very sort of all right, I'll give you one match if you do this for me, and all the people around them are everyone's got their angle and their, and that's kind of the way the whole society seems to work. But as it progresses, he learns, to have a little bit of compassion for people and accept them and work with them in order to, so that they can achieve their goals at the end. So that I found kind of an interesting sort of way that the
yeah.
film progresses. That he sort of, there is an arc for him in a sense in terms of his attitude towards the other people. So, what about you, Jonathan? Did you pick up on that, or did you interpret it a different way?
Well, I was slightly struggling to make head or tail of it, really. But one thing I did see that I noticed, because you've got this stratified society, one of the sort of things I read about it is may, maybe there's certain a bit about sort of Georgia and sort of anti-Georgianism in
Mm,
sort of Russia, because apparently Russians sometimes can look down on people from Georgia, and so the director's Georgian, the composer's Georgian, and then the violinist is Georgian, and so there's a sort of, yeah, there's quite a lot about that. But I think about how the sort of there's this sort of stratified society, and there's basically Russians at the top and Georgians and all the other sort of groups in the USSR maybe below them. But I mean, the thing is wide open, this film. So I'm not
Yes,
saying
indeed.
that is the meaning of it, because it is very much lets you understand it as you prefer. It's wild, completely wild.
Mm. And you do go along with the two protagonists, like George was saying, because you very much as a viewer, you start out just with like them, you get
Yes.
thrown into the situation just like them,
Yep.
and you have to
mm,
figure it all out just like them. there's
Yes.
no there's no like real great sort of narrative exposition that sort of explains everything, like, a lot of American films now start out with a little narrated thing at the beginning to say, this is the world, this is the history. It's sort of like this really quick sort of world building, sort of little narrated bit at the end. And I always find it really actually quite grating because it's like this kind of lazy way of just quickly going, okay, audience, here's the setup, this is what's going on, and now away we go. But this film doesn't do any of that. It just literally just takes you, just like the two central
mm,
characters,
Yeah.
plops you into their situation, and you've got to work it all out with them. You got to work out, where are we? Who are these guys? What are they saying?
Yeah.
And then as the film progresses, you just like them work it out. Like, how do I communicate with these people? What is the angle with these guys? What do I have to do to get round and get what I want from them? And that's kind of exactly, the audience goes through that whole process with them, and that's kind of part of the fun because it's all very silly and weird and kooky and quite engaging. I would almost use the word charming. It has a kind of a charming
Hmm.
aspect to it, which really sort of takes you along on this ride.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the sort of things that takes a while to get into. There's this sort of language, the Plukian language.
Yeah.
And Wikipedia actually has sort of 17 of the words explained for you there.
Well,
And
yeah, there's a bit halfway through. There's like a little intermission, and then they come up with a thing, and they have a little list, and they say, "This is what this is, and this is
Yeah.
what this is." But they
yes,
only do it halfway through. After there's like, you know, and then there's that little weird bit just before the intermission where they have a scene that looks like it takes place after everything else, and they've obviously gotten back to Earth. And then the young man is actually trying to explain himself to his mother or whoever it is, his mother or his
yeah,
teacher, about where he's been for the last 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years was it?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what he said.
Yeah.
And it was just this weird little bit that they kind of tacked in on the end of the first part,
yeah,
which is was slightly disorienting, I must admit, because they sort of were on the planet. They were sort of, it was kind of an intermission in the and it just then has this little bit of him talking to his mom and trying to explain where he's been all this time.
6 years.
yes.
Yeah, so I
But
thought that
yeah,
was quite interesting as well.
without giving too much away, giving the end away, basically they get back to where they were at the beginning with no time having
Mm.
elapsed. So it's
Yes.
that 6 years later is like a sort of alternative
Hmm.
sort of ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never thought of it like it actually. Yeah.
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 And the whole thing, Burning Man, it had very sort of big Burning Man vibes, I would say, or the sort of cyberpunks in the desert.
Mm.
And it occurred to me that Kin-Dza-Dza is what you say. This is what I wrote in my notes. Kin-Dza-Dza is what you say after smoking a space joint.
Kins, it's going to stick now.
Well, this probably would be one of those films that'd be quite fun to watch after a spliff. Of course, audience, not that I'm condoning that sort of behavior.
Well, in
I'm
Canada,
just
you can
talking
condone
hypothetically.
it.
But yeah, it's really brilliant. It was interesting. There's loads of supplements on the Deaf Crocodile
No,
Blu-ray. And one of them, I mean, I didn't have time to work through all of it prior to the show, but there was a little sort of what they call video essays, one of these things where a critic goes on and just gives a little bit of their interpretation. And some aspects of it are annoying because I always get annoyed a little bit because it's a little bit of an easy thing for when people look at Soviet era Eastern European films, and they just automatically sort of fall back on this that they're these subversive criticisms of communist society or whatever, and that seems like a little bit of a sometimes a bit of a they're probably bringing their own sort of cultural biases to their analysis of the film sometimes. But having said that, there was an interesting thing in where he said that some of the story was inspired by an actual incident. It might have been in Georgia. I'm sorry that I can't remember the exact details, but that apparently had redirected a lake in order to help grow cotton in various areas. But as a result, it created a bit of an environmental catastrophe. And in the end, the lake dried up and
okay.
got all used up because they diverted all the water and eventually all the rivers dried up and everything. So where they used to have this big, beautiful lake, it had been turned into this desert. And that partly inspired the film because this planet is very much a story about how they were using
Hmm.
water to create some sort of a fuel or something, and then now they don't have any water, and so they have to go around and try and scrounge up these bits of these things that they made out of water so
Uh,
that they can extract some water out of it to be able to drink again. Sort of self-made environmental catastrophe that's been brought on this planet, and that's kind of now this dystopian sort of landscape that they've self-perpetuated. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take on it.
Yes,
So
apparently
go ahead.
that story is the Aral Sea. In the 1960s, Soviet engineers diverted rivers feeding the Aral Sea for irrigation, causing it to shrink dramatically and creating the vast Aral Kum Desert. Um,
Truth.
so, yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
I had,
So it's amazing
And
because
that's where you say it was filmed. That's where the movie was
I think
filmed.
it was filmed in the similar sounding Karakum Desert.
Oh, Karakum, beg your pardon.
Aralkum, as it, which was, yeah,
Hmm.
amazing. Yeah, it
yeah,
says,
but it's quite an interesting story. And you hear about those kind of projects. They used to do stuff like that all the time, and they've done things like that in the United States and elsewhere where they've built these dams and flooded huge tracts of land and stuff, and they're just all these big sort of industrial projects that they thought they were being very clever to radically change an environment in order to, for some sort of commercial project or farming project or something, and then ending up there's all these unintended consequences when you manipulate nature. And so that very much feels like it's the backdrop of this film and this world, is that this they sort of ruined their own planet, and then they're just constantly having to adapt and find ways of trying to continue to make it work. And it's a pretty bleak looking landscape and environment, isn't it, that they
Yeah.
wander around in. But of course the whole thing's approached with humor and just a lot of fun. I mean, the songs are really funny as well. Like the man saw it on television, like somebody performing a new sort of hit on the TV at the beginning of the film, and then that becomes their livelihood on this new planet because they have to go around, and whenever they sing, they have to get in a cage. They're not allowed. No one's allowed to sing outside in the open. They have to get into a cage, so they have to climb into these really, small sort of cages, and then sing. He sings this song, and that's how they're trying to earn some money so that they can buy this little doodad that they need to put in their little spaceship or whatever it is. It's kind of, is it a spaceship or was it just like a,
I think it was a small thing they used in the spaceship to power it up, wasn't it? A
yeah. But it's
bloody
almost like
bush
they're not
bush or something.
spaceships. It's almost like they've worked out across, like it's some sort of a dimensional portal, really, isn't it? They
Yes,
don't really
yeah.
fly through space. They kind of just have this chart that has the everything's numbered, and they have to put a number on, this sort of very elaborate calculator. And that's what the guy has at the beginning, and he's kind of saying to them, give me the number of your planet so I can work out where I am. And then the guy goes, oh yeah, here, just give it to me. And he presses it, and that's how he ends up getting them into the mess in the first place.
It's because all these elaborate, like you say, these elaborate numbers, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really make sense. And I think going back to again how you have these rules and societal norms kind of placed on you, and then you don't really question why you follow them or why you conform to them or why you have to adapt to them in order to survive, as I'm sure people would have had to. I know you say that kind of buys into the cliches, but I do think that's a big part of this film for me.
Hmm.
A big critique on Soviet life in that time.
Yeah, quite possibly, or like any sort of, like, in society, we have all those hierarchies, and we have, whatever the sort of political dogma of the time. There are these certain things in any society that we sort of conform to and we go along with, and we sort of buy into that. And I think,
You're right. Any society, you're right. Even here, yeah, it's true.
yeah, and I think the even the whole thing about the transactional nature of the relationships, like there doesn't seem to be, in this environment, people don't really seem to have kind of close relationships, and nobody can really be trusted because these guys, at the drop of a hat, they'll agree. They'll say, um, okay, if you do this for me or you give me that, I'll do this for
Yes.
you. But then they betray them constantly. They sort of like, then as soon as they get them out, at one point they eject the violinist just randomly
Yes.
out of the ship and then they just kind of randomly go, oh yeah, we got rid of him because we just thought he was going to use up too much oxygen or whatever, and they just got rid of him. The guy's like going, what are you talking about? We got to go back. And he's sort of like, nah, forget him. So there's
The Lutz. Too many Lutz or Lutz,
too
what do they
many
call
loots.
fuel?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so it's hilarious, and so there is just this real transactional nature between all the
Yeah.
relationships. Nobody can really seems to have any close sort of connection,
Mm.
friendship, or anything like that. It's all just sort of like, what can you do for me? What, you give me this and I'll do this for you. I'll take that from you, and nobody can be trusted. It's like everybody's like Donald Trump. It's like, I'll make a deal with you, and then 5 minutes later it's sort of like, now I'm off and I'm not doing what I said I was going to do. And that's kind of just what everybody's like in this world. And that's part of the thing that towards the end they all end up coming together in order to first to rescue the two guys who've been sort of incarcerated basically in a bathtub for until they can raise the money, and then so they have to sort of band together at the end in order to solve everyone's problems and get them back out of Earth. I mean, it's just nice. The nice thing about this film too that struck me is there's no nudity in it. There's no swearing. There's
Mm.
no violence really. I mean, there's a couple of times people get bopped over the head, kind of knocked out, but
Yeah.
there isn't any, like, yeah, I could happily show that to one of my kids, couldn't I? The film is kind of it's not, I wouldn't describe it as a family film, but it's kind of family friendly, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Like there's nothing sort of coarse or anything about it. So I thought that was quite nice too. And apparently the film's been remade as an animated film more
Yeah.
recently. Yeah, so it still has some popularity in kind of Russian culture. So they recently redid it in an animated style. So that'd be quite interesting as well to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Apparently, some of the words, like in Russia, "cool" is like a word that they all know and that they play on. It's part of the kind of the slang culture there because of the film. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's quite interesting too. That I find that this film's actually quite a well-known film in
Yeah.
Russia, but
Amazing.
most people haven't heard of this, and it
Yeah.
hasn't really had a wide distribution, and it's not really well known. And so that's why I thought it was really great that first that I finally got to sit down and watch it, but also just to be able to talk about it a bit more and just maybe put it forward a little bit more and just encourage people to go and check this out because it's a lot of fun. It's just a really fun, entertaining movie, and it is really strange but in a good way, like fun, strange, and very clever and very layered. Lots of stuff to dig into. And I think it's the kind of film you could watch over again and kind of get a bit more out of it each time you watch it. So I definitely will sort of be revisiting it, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah.
Um, did you guys, just conscious of time, did you have any sort of final thoughts? I'll start with George. Is there any kind
I
of
wanted to ask. I wanted to ask you guys about the one guy who keeps. Sometimes he'd say something very prosily about, and he'd add the word "my dear." The guy he always. What do you think the vibe was with that? That's.
I don't know if that's just like
Yeah.
again just a cultural thing that
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
just talk like that when they're addressing somebody they
Yes.
say that, or if whether it was unique to this character. Because obviously, not being Russian myself, I
He was
can't.
quite an interesting character, that guy. I particularly enjoyed him.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they all the characters are really interesting in their own way. But yeah, he was
Yeah.
quite because he seemed to be a little bit more compassionate than his companion, or should I say, he had a slightly more empathy
Yes.
than his
Yes.
companion. And
Yes.
at least initially, you could say that about the Earth pair as well, because the foreman, the uncle, he was a little bit more sort of no nonsense. Let's get this
Mm.
sorted out. He was a little bit aggressive sometimes, not like physically aggressive, but more just sort of like I guess assertive is more the correct word. Being a foreman, I guess he's used to being in charge,
Yes.
so he has that aura of of being in charge, doesn't he?
Mm.
Whereas the young guy was a little bit more compassionate and a little bit more sort of sensitive. And so the two pairs had some parallels there, which was quite nice as well.
Yeah.
Jonathan, any last things you wanted to say about Kin-Dza-Dza?
Well,
Dza-Dza?
I would say for me, I took it as more as a visual feast.
Hmm.
'Cause it's got so many striking images in it, and so inventive, and the sort of all these props that they've created are extraordinary. These sort of flying spaceships and various sort of hidey holes in the sort of sand. They were all great.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I liked it on that level, just this extraordinary looking thing. And I wasn't, in a sense, I was sort of, uh, yeah, just letting it wash over me and enjoy it like that. And yeah, it's, it's crazy and fun. And it should be better known, definitely.
yeah, definitely, definitely. I agree. Like I love those bits with every ship and every door. They always
Yeah.
and no doors open this way. They all open like that, and
Yeah.
they all just crash.
Yes.
Every door gets opened and just goes like this.
Yeah.
So I just thought that that was
Everything
quite a
was very
funny
dusty,
thing.
and all the spaceships clanked. They make a sort of clanking sound rather than sort of whooshing. The,
It's quite lovely familiarity with it, with all the little sounds, little bleeps, little sounds. They become almost familiar to you as the film progresses, almost comforting you. You kind of get to know the sounds,
Mm,
whether it be like the clanks or the bleeps or the music.
mm,
mm. Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
yeah,
true. It is. It does have that. Yeah,
yeah.
and because you're right. Like as we were saying before, that as the film progresses and you like them learn more and more about this world
Mm,
and the customs and the language and all that, then yeah, there is a like almost like a comfort, like almost
mm,
because even at the end, I mean, again, not trying not to spoil too much of what happens, but they have to make a decision at one point, and they almost, they have like an opportunity at one point to get home straight away, but they don't take it because they decide that they can't just abandon those guys, even though those guys have abandoned them like about
mm.
5 times up to there and sort of stabbed them in the back or let them down or whatever in some capacity. But they kind of say, no, actually, we can't do that to them. We have to stay here. So they make a very momentous decision. And I thought that was quite nice. It's quite the film has, on top of everything else, it's kind of got a sweet quality to it as well, doesn't it? Like it's sort of like got a nice sort of soft, gooey center in there somewhere as well. A
Yes,
little bit, a
so
little bit.
you
yes.
can listen to the soundtrack on Spotify under
Oh, brilliant.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll put on our feed on Spotify. I will put a link to the soundtrack so that people can check that out. Because yeah, the soundtrack and like George was saying, all the sound effects and the
Mm,
sound design and everything is a lot of is really nice as well, really fun.
Yeah.
So nice one. All right, guys. Well, so George, if you were having a chat with somebody on the bus and they said, "Hey, what about this weird Soviet era science fiction
Yeah,
film? Should I watch it?" What would you say?
definite thumbs up. Well worth a watch. It's escapism for a couple of hours or just over a couple of hours. Just no space J required. Just have a have a look and escape. Yeah, great film.
Brilliant. How about you, Jono? What would any last sort of would you recommend it or?
I would say if you're in Canada, have a space joint where that sort of thing is legal.
Yes,
Some
yes.
parts of the United States as well, and it's quite a movie, quite out there.
And just remember to wear your yellow trousers so
Definitely.
that everyone goes "Coo!"
Yeah.
the right number of times.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
How about
Well,
you, David? Would you also recommend it?
I mean, I'm sorry, but I guess I assumed I'd already conveyed
Yeah.
that sentiment. But yeah, definitely, folks. I think
Awesome,
this is
man.
a
Awesome.
terrific, really entertaining and very quirky film that I would definitely recommend that people check it out. It's brilliant, and yeah, and you can get. I mean, it isn't easy to see streaming wise, but that Blu-ray is available from Deaf Crocodile in the United
Hmm.
States, and it's a beautiful transfer, and it's got loads of extra features, to help you further appreciate the film, and it's definitely worth adding to your collection. So get out there, folks, and do it, and hopefully one day it'll show up on Disney Plus. But I wouldn't hold your breath. So, on that note, we're going to go to another film next in our double feature, our sort of Hostile Horizons, and we're going to talk about another two characters who get who go into a hostile environment and have to use their wit in order to try and survive. And it's a little bit more serious, is whereas Kin-Dza-Dza is kind of a silly, kind of comedic kind of take on that situation. Our next film gives a much more sort of serious sort of look at that. And it's a really beautiful, very moving animated film from the UK, actually, made by the same people who made classic Watership Down. So we'll be back just after the break to talk about Plague Dogs.
Stupid cop. All I wanted to do was watch my movie. Now my life's become more difficult than ever.
No, sir! Do not lose hope. Get yourself a film swap mug.
Who are you? How did you get in my house?
This is no ordinary mug. It's a quiet sweep of ceramic intention. Light slides along its curves, as if dancing on the magic shadows of a projector screen. The body doesn't just hold the liquid, it cradles it, deliberate, balanced, reassuring in the hand. The handle flows in a perfect arc, sculpted for fingers, designed for moments. The perfect beverage companion for those compelling movie marathons. Clinical surveys found that beverages sipped from this cup are 33% more refreshing. Independent taste labs reported a 27% improvement in aroma retention. Participants described the handle as remarkably intuitive and 42% faster. With a likeness of David and Jonathan etched exquisitely on the gleaming surface, companionship rises to 51%. They turn gently into view with every lift, accompanying each pause, each sip. Fondly reliving those favorite podcast moments with every drop of fluid that passes these lips. Because with this mug, they're not just part of the design, They're there with you every time you lift it. Celebrate cinema and yourself. Get your Film Swap mug today. For more details, go to filmswap.uk.
Thanks for the mug. Now can you please get out of my house?
And we're back. Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, Jonathan. And welcome back, our special guest, George Coutsoudis, who's joined us all the way from Surrey in England. And he's actually just across the street from you. So, George, thanks for coming back. I love all your cool audio gear back there. Are you working on any new music projects that we might be able to share?
I'm always busy on a tune or two.
Yeah, but nothing concrete that you can plug for us today.
No, nothing. That's all good. I'll let you know next time.
Okay, fair enough. But folks, you should definitely go and check out George's
thank you, brother. Thank
various
you.
albums and things. They're available on all the usual places, aren't they?
Yeah, Spotify's all on Spotify. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Thanks for
that's all right. And we did a little number, didn't we? With along with my son, we had a little fun recording a track a couple of years ago, didn't we?
Great fun.
And that's out there, folks. Too. I'm not going to directly plug it, but it's
a walk in space.
A walk in space, yes. So you can go out there, folks, and find that little ditty because it's great. But anyway, on with the show. We are on the second of our double feature tonight. A British film this time from 1982, and it's an animated film from the same team that created the very classic 70s animation Watership Down. This is also based on a Richard Adams book, and it's quite an interesting film. It's a very moving story about two dogs that escape from a research facility and then have to learn to survive out in the wild. And due to a media hysteria that works up around these dogs, and which leads to a lot of danger from them because they become hunted by the authorities and the hunters and the local farmers and everything. So they have to learn how to navigate that in a very hostile natural environment. These are two dogs that assumed from the narrative that they weren't always living in the research center, or I guess one of them was and one of them wasn't. So
yeah, one
of them. Sorry, Jonathan.
One of them definitely wasn't, and one of them we don't really know, I would say.
Yeah. But they are sort of one of the animals is heavily domesticated, and the other animal, it has been, basically a science experiment in a lab for quite a long time. And suddenly they find themselves out on the moors, or where is this? This is in the Lake District somewhere, isn't it, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have to learn to survive. And they have lots of adventures and things that happen. And it's quite an interesting film. George, if I could start with you, because again, I wanted to bring someone into the discussion tonight that had not seen these films or maybe were familiar with them before. I just wanted to get your first impressions of Plague Dogs and what you thought of it.
Well, very moving story, first and foremost. These two dogs, or many dogs, are in this rather awful research facility, and it's quite an intense scene in the beginning where you see this dog wading through water and it immediately sucks you in. You're almost like breathing heavily with this dog, and then so it immediately, bang, puts you into the picture of this rather terrifying environment. And then, in an opportune way, the one dog, by crawling under an unhinged bit of the wiring and then an open door in a cage, two dogs managed to escape the facility into fresher freedom. But then the freedom is quite challenging. It's there's lots of danger. It's I particularly love I know it was 82, the film 1982. So So animation has obviously moved on through different phases since then, but I think it really depicts the district quite well, the Lake District, and it's very beautiful imagery, but it's also quite alienating, and it's quite almost. I think I read somewhere about it being indifferent, and I thought that was a great way to describe this kind of setting that they create, in which these two animals start trying to find their way, and in a very daunting and difficult environment. So their freedom is hard. They're having to find their way. So just going on the journey with these two animals who have been abused, and sad, you feel the sadness as well. So yeah, I think it's a great exposition for the story, and you immediately get start going along for the ride with these pooches.
And what do you think about the tone of it? Because, like, we're used to animated films from
Yes.
Disney that are a bit more happy and have lots of music and lots are very colorful and fun. But this film has quite a different tone to it, doesn't it? So
Yes.
what did
On
you
all those
think of
points you
that?
mentioned, no songs,
Yeah.
no happy kind of, at least animation songs. The colors are often very dark and, I won't say monotone, but very dramatic at the same time as well. I think it creates very dramatic landscapes. I love the way the rustling water, they create that feeling of the movement and rustling water amongst this quite harsh environment in which they're traveling. Yes, I say on all those points you just mentioned, no music, interesting dark tones in the animation, and the animation doesn't look as sophisticated as it would now in terms of the CGI and stuff. So I think that adds to it as well. It's an uncomfortable context to be a part of. I found. Yeah.
Okay, and how about you, Jonathan? Was your first time seeing Plague Dogs as well, wasn't it?
First time seeing it, yeah, I think I've seen Watership Down very, very long time ago when I was a child. But I had heard of this one, but I hadn't seen it. And I was glad you suggested it because enjoyed Watership Down. And I guess it's sort of similar. That one's about sort of animals sort of suffering at the hands of humans, and this one too. And the sort of countryside, sort of set in the countryside. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Very moving. And I mean, the cast is great. You've got the main animal, Ralph, is sort of voiced by John Hurt, who's we've had him once or twice on the podcast already. Not had him as a guest, sadly.
No, oh God, I wish I would love to have
Yeah,
had a chance to have a chat with him.
yeah. But
Um,
he's been in he was in the Elephant Man, which we've done before, and also has Nigel Hawthorne as a doctor, and yeah, the other dog is voiced by a chap called Christopher Benjamin, not so well known. Um, but
yeah, and I noticed on the credits at the end that Patrick Stewart did one of the voices as well.
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
this would have been sort of pre-fame Patrick Stewart before
exactly,
he. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. James Bolam, he's sort of well known as he was the Fox. He's sort of well known British TV actor.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's very very moving. It is sort of the landscape is very windswept and sort of harsh. From when they escape
Mm.
this scientific establishment, it's a research establishment, and amusingly, apparently in the book, it's called the. Let me look it up. It's the Animal Research Scientific and Experimental. It was acronym being ARS, which is quite good. But yeah, the book
And
came
is
out.
this a real thing, or was it just made
Well,
up for
it
the
actually
film?
was based on a real place at the time, but now that it was Lawson Park, research center, but now it's like an arts organization is based in the same building, or in the building. It's been uh, replaced. But I think there was sort of experimental uh, station there, but apparently it's not really based on that. It's more just animals everywhere. Sort of. But it works well because it allows them to go into the Lake District, which is this extraordinary landscape where the animators can really get to work. And there's some amazing names on the anime. So I think they did like half of it in the UK and half of it in America. Um, and so the British team, uh, they've got people who worked on, well, Watership Down, uh, Yellow Submarine, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Fantastic
Mm.
Mr. Fox, and the American team included Retta Scott, who was been worked with in Disney since the sort of 40s, and she'd worked on the hunting scene in Bambi. So, I mean,
Mm.
I guess they got her for these sort of quite unpleasant sort of hunting scenes in this as well, because they're being hunted down, these two dogs. And
Mm.
one of the other names, sort of like Patrick Stewart, pre-fame Patrick Stewart voices in it, pre-fame Brad Bird, animator, is in it. Oh, it's not in it, but he was animating it. The chap who made Ratatouille and what's his other, The Incredibles as well. But although apparently he was fired because he had a disagreement with the director. But anyway, he was sort of part of the team at the beginning, or sort of for a portion of the making of the film. So it's got amazing amount of talent, and it's funny that it's so forgotten, isn't it? With all these people working.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's interesting that the film did kind of fall into obscurity, and actually, like the film didn't get a wide distribution at the time, and the American, like if you get the Blu-ray,
yeah,
um, which is available from Screenbound here in the UK, I don't know about in other territories, but there's actually two cuts of the film on the disc. There's I guess was the kind of original kind of UK version of the film. And then when it was released in the US, they edited it down quite substantially by about sort of, I don't know, about 20 minutes, is it? About,
okay,
or 15 minutes.
right,
So they decided to condense it down a little bit. And the film, I think, was probably because of its tone, it probably didn't they probably didn't know really how to market it very well in terms
yeah,
of, it's not really like a children's film in the sense of a lot of animated films, but at the same time it's not it's not really an adult film either, is it? So it's kind of, it must have been a strange thing for them to try and market it to an audience, I guess, like in a mass market kind of way.
mm,
So the film just did kind of slip into obscurity, and it does have a cult following, and it's kind of quite well regarded by
right,
kind of, by people who like animation, or just like interesting obscure films.
right,
But yeah, it's kind of fallen off of the radar a little bit. I mean, one of the things because like you, Watership Down was kind of a film they used to show on TV a lot when I was a kid, and I think I remember seeing it at school. They would one day one of the teachers brought it out and showed it to us in a class when I was quite young, and I remember having it quite a profound impact on me because seeing that like an animated film, but it had quite intense scenes, and the animals were in a lot of danger, and there was violence and
yeah,
blood and all those kind of things in it that kind of, when you're young, those that kind of strong material has more of an impact on you. And this film kind of takes that up a notch because it's very intense. You kind of feel this kind of ominous kind of, that things aren't going to go well for them.
right,
And they have, like you say, that's a very intense beginning of the dog that they're literally drowning the dog on purpose. They're putting it in a big giant vat of water to see how long it can stay before it gives up and drowns basically, and then they pull it out at the last second before it dies, and then kind of revive it, and then do it again so that the poor dog, to see if it can do better the next time or whatever. And that's just, the thought of that is so horrible and so nasty that it's quite an intense beginning, and you really feel for these dogs right at the beginning, that there's this kind of doomed quality to their life, and the sadness, and a lot of trauma and things for them. And then they get this chance to be free and run out in the wild. But it's quite, being out in the wild's quite a harsh, nasty environment, and they got to work out how they're going to eat, and they got to avoid dangers, and they got to, you know, they run into people and then have horrible mishaps. And so the whole thing has a certain tone, a certain quality to it of sadness, and that makes it quite different from animated films.
Yeah.
Um, so it's quite an interesting kind of anomaly in amongst animated sort of films, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a sort of chase film, but it's different different to most chase films, in the sense that they're animals, and it's there's a definite sort of political point, I guess, about sort of maltreatment of animals in science,
and media hysteria as well, because a lot of the danger and everything that and the reaction that people have to the dogs is all sort of brought on by the television, isn't it? And the reports on the news that sort of intentionally or not start to sort of drum up this hysteria around these dogs,
yes,
about how dangerous they are, so that it actually makes matters much worse for them, because they literally have nowhere to turn to be safe, do they? And they have to rely on just each other to look after themselves.
yeah.
And the Todd, I thought the Todd was an interesting character, because you immediately think, okay, Fox, the evil Fox, is going to do them in, and yet he's never. I mean, he's out for himself, but never really does anything to harm them. In essence, in fact, in one situation, saves Snitter, or can't remember the doggy's name. What did you guys make of Mr. Todd, or the Todd? Sorry.
Yeah, I thought he was really interesting as well. Yeah, it was, you were guessing, is he good? Is he bad? Or yeah, he was.
And he kind of it again, and this wasn't intentional when we picked these two films. It was not intentional, but there is a real parallel between them, because the Mr. Todd character in this, sorry, I called him Mr. Todd. It wasn't Mr. Todd, but Todd, the fox, has a lot of interesting parallels between the two aliens that pick up our travelers in the first film, because they're not bad, they're not evil, they're selfish, and they're kind of looking out for themselves, but ultimately they're not bad, are they? And they actually end up cooperating and working together to overcome some of their challenges. So I found that was quite interesting, how much these two films kind of go together. Characters being thrust into a hostile environment and having to navigate that, and how some of the characters and situations parallel each other in the two films.
Nice. Good point, David. Yes.
Todd is an old Northern English and Scottish word meaning fox, if you didn't know. So hence Todd in this thing, Mr. Todd in Beatrix Potter, and the Fox and the Hound Disney film from 1981, which has the young, there's a fox there called Todd, voiced by Mickey Rooney, the great Mickey Rooney. So that's where Todd and foxes come from. Should you be interested?
Isn't that interesting? Because the Fox and the Hound came out sort of roughly around the same time as this film too, didn't it? It was kind of late 70s or early 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
Um,
was 81, so I think it was the year before this one. Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
So that's interesting as well. So, what did you make of the depiction of people in this film? Because I've found it quite interesting the fact that the people never get like you never fully see them. You only just kind of see their feet. You get a real sort of dog's eye view of people, don't you? You always only see their knees or their feet or
Yes,
the sort of muzzle of their gun or whatever,
yeah.
and you hear their voices.
Like
So
Harry
good.
McClary, the children's books. I don't know if you know those, but in Harry
No.
McClary, there's this sort of little dog, sort of that's always causing chaos, and you never see the humans' faces. It's just they're
Hmm.
always cut off there, and from for a sort of dog's eye view of the world, and it's sort of a similar thing. I don't think you see a single face really, do you? Maybe on TV, but not really. And I think that's an effective. I like that effective technique. I really like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Harry McCleary. I think we read some of them. They were books, weren't they? I think we read some of them to our kids when they were little.
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't. We might still have them sitting around on the shelf somewhere. But yeah, and it's also a little bit stylistically like you remember the Peanuts cartoons
yeah,
and stuff. You know the animated versions of the Peanuts comic strip, and where they'd always show the adults. You'd never actually see them, but
right.
and then you just hear them, but it was always like this, so you didn't really sort of hear what they were saying.
Yeah,
Because I thought that was interesting, and again to draw parallels with Kin-Dza-Dza, the fact that communication is a real sort of challenge in both films, isn't it? Because the dogs can't communicate.
no,
I mean, obviously they talk to each other and they communicate with the fox, but with people, the communication, there is no way of communicating. And just like in the first film, where the communication is a real challenge because of the language and cultural barriers.
yeah,
So I just thought that was an interesting parallel between it as well. And
mm,
how communication between people, I guess that's where what I was thinking was that too, because the humans in the story, when they communicate out to each other, it amplifies the hysteria or amplifies the dilemma for the dogs because they're looking at all just from their own points of view. Like the guys in the research center are kind of worried about, oh, if this gets out, then it's going to impact our funding.
mm,
And the people in the police are worried about this, and the farmers are worried about that. So you get all these different sort of perspectives from
yeah,
all these different sort of communities or people within the community.
I thought the psychological trauma that was depicted, the smaller of the dogs,
Yeah, the
with
John
all
Hurt,
that,
the one with the head
yeah,
injury.
there's that kind of
Yeah,
juxtaposition of the almost a negative image with the animation, and it goes through its hallucinations.
yeah.
And it's the way it depicts the kind of trauma that the pooch has endured as a result of the all the experimentation. I found that quite hard as well
Hmm.
to live through, for the dog.
yeah. Well, the old John Hurt's terrific. He brings that amazing vulnerability that
Yes,
he brings to roles like the Elephant Man, which this character his character is so sort of adorable and vulnerable, and it's really great, really great.
And what did you make of the difference in the personalities between them? Like in the fact that they have had these traumas and they've been in these research centers and they've had all this stuff happen to them. But the little dog is a bit more hopeful, isn't he? A bit more
yeah, exactly.
positive.
He's had a
And he's
master.
sort of dreams because he had a master. So
Mm,
his relationships with humans, with people, has been he's had positive experiences and he sort of still has that hopefulness of that dream of having a master again
Yes,
and being treated nice. Whereas the other dog, because he's never had that, he has a much more cynical sort of, attitude towards it. So they have very sort of markedly different personalities that they bring to their situation,
Yeah.
which I thought was an interesting
Mm.
dynamic. Mm.
That one scene where he's caught in the barn or whatever, and he's in a cold, damp barn, but in his hallucinations, he's next to the fireplace with the armchair and the arm reaching over and giving him a stroke. That just broke my heart when I saw that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's almost again reinforcing how is the freedom that they've got. It's so harsh, They're not captive anymore, but what's their other alternative reality is also hard.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good. It's really good because there's basically no place for sort of wild or sort of dogs in the British landscape, and if they're going to be eating eating sheep to survive, and sort of eating people's rubbish out of their bins, and yeah, really good. And the ending is very touching as well. I really like that.
It
Really,
has. It's kind of one of those endings that's a little bit ambiguous, isn't it?
yeah,
Very sad because, as we said, it kind of the big dog kind of goes full circle,
Yeah.
doesn't he? Which is really heartbreaking because we have this really traumatic scene at the beginning, and then at the end, he ends up in the exact same scenario.
yes,
Um, but and you don't know because the one dog does have this because they'd been experimenting on his brain basically, so he kind of keeps dipping into these hallucinations, and he has difficulty sometimes working out what's real and what's not, and or things kind of intrude in at inopportune moments. But at the end, he kind of thinks, "Oh, I see an island, and we can be free there." And so off they go. But you don't really know. Like, I guess so you could interpret the ending two separate ways, couldn't you? As a more hopeful sort of ending, or you could look at it as more just a really sad, sort of inevitable an end to their story kind of thing.
Yeah.
Reading that in a way has a hopefulness because you think, well, at least they don't. It ends in freedom either way, doesn't it?
yeah,
Well, as the one dog says, at least I'm not sure if this was a line from, but he said, "I'm not with the white coats anymore."
Yeah, yeah.
He's on his terms.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Which, that's all. Yeah, that's what all anyone can hope for, isn't it? Really, is to.
It's not exactly
It's
a happy ending, but it has a sort of coherence, and it's not a sort of cop out in any way. It makes sense from the whole point of view of the thing, but it does have a certain. They find peace in a sense, and yeah, I really like the film. Really good.
and it wouldn't be like wouldn't have felt right if it ended as they met some really kind old man who kind of took them in and gave them a place by the fire and said, there, you'll be all right now.
Oh,
That would have felt artificial. Or to have them sort of break out in a song and kind of we're gonna be all right now kind of thing. It's not. It would have felt dishonest and sort of not in keeping with the general tone and of the film.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, did you know that the song at the end, "Time and Tide," which was composed and sung by Alan Price, formerly of the Animals, uh, it was sampled by the Canadian industrial group Skinny Puppy. Did you know
no.
that?
I did not know this. No, that's interesting.
Was that the same song that was on the music video, kind of trailer for the film? Because I thought that was interesting as well. How that very upbeat song with the dogs
Yeah,
running around.
sort of
Yeah.
gospel-y, sort of
Yes.
new song. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's the number at the end of the film, isn't it? That runs
Okay.
over the credits. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's a nice
So
song.
yeah, it's a beautiful film, isn't it? It's like just the look of it, like all that. It almost has like kind of like a watercolory kind of sort of the backdrops in some of
Mm,
them, and they do have that kind of natural beauty, but also that ominous kind of quality to it that's kind of in
Mm.
fitting with their situation. And you really do get pulled in and engaged in their dilemmas and their story. And it has some exciting, tense moments, and there are little bits of when things work out for them a little bit, they get something to eat, or
yeah.
they have a little moment that might seem slightly more hopeful. I don't know.
So
Would
I
you
what?
find
agree
that,
with
that
that?
those moments always get pulled away from you quite quickly, though. They had
Mm.
that slight moment of repose, and then it's like, actually, no. And that's what I find hard about the film.
Yeah,
Great about the film, but in a, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
David, you said that in the shorter version, the American version, they basically sort of cut out transitions and stuff like that. So would you say that was like sort of maybe slightly better film, or was it sort of it was a bit hurried, a bit rushed? What would you? What's your?
Well,
It's different.
yeah, because sorry, I was in the break. I was saying to Jonathan that because I quite recently watched this film for the first time. It was only maybe sort of 3 months ago, um, and uh, and that's one of the reasons why I said, "Oh, I wouldn't mind talking about that one," because I thought it was really interesting.
Mm,
So when I watched it this time, because I'd watched it fairly recently and it was still relatively fresh in my mind, I thought this time I would watch the shorter cut, the US cut of the film, just to see what the differences were, and to be honest, I couldn't. I mean, it had been a few months, but I couldn't really notice anything particular that
Mm.
was missing
okay.
in the shorter version. But what I did notice is that a lot of the scenes had more sort of abrupt fades to black. They use this fading to black to do the transitions between scenes, and they sometimes were a bit abrupt. And so I think maybe that the way that they shortened the film down was more about just condensing scenes rather than removing scenes altogether. But I qualify that by saying that I wasn't doing any kind of side by side comparison, and I was just going from my memory of watching the film a few months ago. So I can't say that I noticed any significant things that were missing from the longer version. But I guess to answer your question, I guess I mean it was quicker, it was shorter. Maybe that's what they were going for. They wanted to tighten it up and make it a
Yeah.
bit quicker, because the longer version of the film does have a more kind of leisurely pace, and which isn't a bad thing. It's just that it spends a bit more time sort of building that mood and going on that journey. So I think, but I didn't miss any key things from the, and I was actually surprised by it, because what I expected on the shorter American cut was that they might have excised some of the stronger moments, some of the more tense moments, or the little moments of violence and things like that. That's kind of what I assumed what the editing would have done, would be to have sort of sanitized the film a little bit, but it didn't do that at all. It seemed still a lot of the really strong material was still present in the shorter cut. So,
Right.
um, but without literally sitting down and running them side by side, which frankly, life's too short for that. But I think that's the only way you'd be able to definitely identify and go, oh,
Yeah.
they cut that bit out, or they
Yeah.
shortened that bit out and stuff. So
What led you to the film, David? Initially, how did you hear about it, or what introduced you to the film? Interesting film. Did you know about it from before?
I was kind of like
I,
Jonathan. I kind of knew of it. I'd
okay.
heard of it, but I just never had a chance to see it before. And then I just picked that up in a sale. It was going for like just a couple of pounds or
Wow.
something, and I just said, "Oh, I wanted to see that," so I
Nice.
picked it up. And then yeah, just a few months ago, I watched it. Thought it was really really interesting, and I thought that that's a cool film that would be worth talking about. So that's how that came about. Because I just basically wanted Jonathan to see it. I was sort of like, this is a cool film. You should see this.
That's good.
Mm.
And that's kind of now we've extended that to the whole world on our podcast. We're saying, this is a cool film. You should watch this. It's neat.
Definitely.
So check it out, folks. Did you guys have any last thoughts or anything that you wanted to say?
I will finish off on that film with saying that it left me feeling sad, but sometimes that's okay. You know, sometimes that's, you're going to feel. And going back to the point that you started off the hour with by saying that you just kind of sense that there's this overriding sense of doom for these guys,
Mm.
and you instinctively you always want the ending to be happy, but so it left me feeling sad, but that's okay, that's sometimes you need to experience that, and I think that's what the power of the film is.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. How about you, Jonathan? Did you have any last kind of observations or anything you wanted to?
I really enjoyed the film. I hadn't seen it before, but I think it's a fine animation, and I really like John Hurt, and I think this is one of his, good performances that if you're a fan, you should definitely watch from his sort of period in the sort of late 70s, early 80s when he was, really going for it. All those great roles he did around then. So check it
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely one of the greats, John Hurt, absolutely, and he definitely missed.
out.
Uh, yeah, and he brings a lot, even just when he's just doing voice acting, he's still just absolutely brilliant.
Definitely.
So definitely, yeah, just on that alone, it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
Great. Well, so I guess is this a good recommendation all around then from everyone? Would you?
Ah,
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, for folks who are listening, they're putting their
Oh,
thumbs up. They're both putting their thumbs up. So yeah, as it's a podcast, so guys, you probably
thank you.
verbalize your feelings there.
Thumbs up, loved it. Yeah, very very great film.
Yeah.
As with everything with you guys, after being invited to join exploring movies, I feel richer, more educated, and in our bite-sized culture of few seconds visual snippets of nothingness, I think it's amazing that you guys, encourage the watching of films and enriching films as well. Thank you guys.
cool.
Well, thank you for those kind words, George, and that's really nice of you to say. And the what's always really nice about these situations is that because Jonathan and I sometimes will pick films that are seemingly have no relationship to each other, and then it's always interesting that again we just happen to put these two films together, and then it turns out that they have a lot of really they go together really well, and one kind of more quirky and funny sort of take, and one that's a little bit more downbeat and a little bit sad, and as you said, but they both have a lot of really interesting parallels between them that I just always think that's really cool that we always manage to put these two films together and go, well, actually they fit together kind of well, and they kind of have, so it's ended up being a really good theme, I think. And both of these films, I definitely would encourage people to go and find them. It might be a bit more challenging to find these films, especially if you're not into, buying physical media and you rely on streaming and stuff to find things. I think both of these films might be a bit trickier to see, but
Yeah.
I definitely would encourage you to make the effort to try and find them. Right, guys. George, thank you so much for
Thanks,
jumping in
guys.
on this. We really appreciate you
Thank you, brother.
dropping in.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me, guys, as
And
always.
again, folks, I will say, as he's here in person, I'll thank him for helping out to do our little silly promo for the Film Swap mugs that we are sharing in the middle of the show there. So.
Has Logan recovered yet?
almost. And folks, go and check out our website, because there's lots of glorious, wonderful, magical things to explore. Filmswap.uk, including that video with George. If you want to watch it again, it's on there. On that note, folks, we're going to leave it there for tonight. And thanks for joining us. It's a crazy world out there, not just the planet Plunk or whatever. What was the name of the planet? Pluke, not just the planet Pluke, but our planet's pretty crazy at the moment as well. So be careful out there, and be good to each other, and watch lots of cool films. And we will be back soon. It's summertime, and so we're kind of in vacation season. So there might be slightly longer gaps between episodes at this time of year, but we will be back as soon as we can to talk about some more great films. So until then, George, we hope you'll come back and join us again soon.
Thank you, brother. Thanks, guys.
All right. So, folks, take care, and we'll see you soon. Okay. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Film Swap podcast. If you like this podcast, please consider giving the show a rating or leaving a review. This helps other listeners find the show. Binge-worthy and better with time, our past episodes are packed with deep dives, hot takes, and fascinating themes. Whether you're a long-time listener or just jumping in, there's a topic and a classic film to suit any taste. Explore the Film Swap back catalogue today. Learn more at filmswap.uk.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrill.
Oh, the things these nerdy middle-aged men get up to.